Commentary for Jubilees, chapter 7. In the footnotes of the Lawrence translation, regarding the three things, it mentions that these are the three cardinal sins in verse 21. So let's go there. Talking about fornication and covering the shame of their flesh. Actually, no, it's more honor your father and mother, loving their neighbor, guarding their souls from fornication, uncleanness, and all iniquity. So perhaps the three are fornication, uncleanness, and all iniquity. Okay, so that's what it is, those three, the last three. And regarding the three classes of giants, it says here, Nephilim are giants, the Nephil are also giants, and Eljo or Elio are also giants, according to the footnote here. That kind of makes sense to me, that these three giants would have some kind of tribal warfare between another. And then all three pretty much, well, specifically the Elio or Eljo, were killing men, Adam kind. Regarding the word or unlike, they were all unlike, could also mean plundered, or can be translated as plundered or strove. So in any case, they were not getting along. Okay, and this ends in verse 38. In verse 36, Beer makes a comment regarding verse 36. It says here, this was the view of Ibn Ezra, Karaites, and Samaritans concerning the fruit of the fourth year. The law in Leviticus 19, verses 23 to 4, seems rather exacting. Our translation agrees with it, and reading will be accounted holy. Will be gathered, but this interpretation is contrary to the ordinary view of Josephus. Okay, so that's an interesting rule regarding when to eat the fruit. Verse 37, lacuna here, laws about fruit should be continued. Okay, and okay, I think that's all for that portion. So I'm going to just look over it and see if I see anything that I noticed that I want to talk about. The curse regarding Ham. Many people understand this to mean not just that he saw his father naked, literally just naked, but that they refer to the commandment regarding do not uncover the nakedness of your father being a reference to his father's wife, which means that when one commits adultery with another, you uncover the nakedness of that person. Specifically, when we're talking about a man and his wife, you're uncovering that man's nakedness by sleeping with his wife. So that makes a lot more sense to me than just simply seeing someone naked and then that resulting in a curse. I'm sure hundreds of thousands of people have seen the relative naked by accident, or whatever the circumstances are. They probably saw some nudity in their time, but as a result, they were not cursed or was not perceived as being sinful. Just glancing on someone or catching them at the wrong moment. But committing adultery is very serious in a lot of cultures. So this would make more sense to me that he would be cursed as a result of sleeping with his grandfather's wife, in this case, since it is Ham, who is the son of Canaan. Or I should say Canaan being the son of Ham. And I just noticed as well that Ham, the name of his sons, Cush, Mizraim, and Put and Canaan, these are all names of African, uh, historically African nations. Cush, I believe, is Sudan, possibly. Mizraim is Egypt. We know that one. Put, I believe, is also either Ethiopia or Sudan. So I might have mixed that up with Cush. And then Canaan, we know is the land of Canaan, which is Israel. And then we have these tongue twister names of the wives. And they had this rivalry going on. You want to build a city? I'll build myself a city. Probably want to build more grandiose cities, nicer cities, and bigger cities as well. Okay. So he's telling them to cover the shame of their flesh, which can literally mean dressing modestly, perhaps, or as I was alluding to, the interpretation that it is covering their wife. So perhaps keeping your wife covered up, not just dressed modestly, but also wearing a head covering, because as we know, as you may know, if you read about head coverings in the New Testament, that is to be done, and the reason why is because of the angels. The angels sleeping or having sex with, fornicating with human women. So perhaps Noah's wife was not covered. Maybe she was dressed immodestly. Maybe she was walking around naked, or perhaps she was just not wearing a head covering, perhaps. I know a lot of people have these opinions that ancient peoples were very primitive, but if we think about it, Adam lived almost 1,000 years. Imagine all the advances he saw in his day, and perhaps what kinds of fashion they wore. Maybe they were a lot more modern than we'd like to think. Not saying modern as in, suit and tie, but in terms of the way Middle Eastern people would dress, kind of the way I'm dressed right now. And they seem to have preserved that for hundreds to thousands of years, and that is preserved to this day, especially among Yemeni Jews and a lot of the Muslim community. Okay, so again, there's a lot to unpack in this chapter. It says here in verse 27, the demons have begun their seductions against you. That's very interesting that the demons are seducing their kids, whether it's to sexually or perhaps to seduce them away from the commandment of their father. Commandments. Because, no, he's not specifying sex, he's specifying shedding blood, so murderous heart, not loving your neighbor. And there's a warning against that and the consequences for doing so. And again, it's repeated, I believe, from the previous chapters. What happens to someone who not only eats blood but also sheds blood? There will not be left to him any seed or descendants living under heaven, according to Jubilees anyway. And it's very important that if blood is spilt, whether it's human blood or beast, but in this case beast or cattle, whatever sacrifice is being done, cover up the blood. Dispose of it properly by burying it in the ground. Okay, there was something I wanted to mention in verse 34. Let me just reread it. Oh, maybe. Okay, I think that's the word maybe. Could be a typo. May and be separated. And I think that's it for this chapter, this commentary. So thank you very much for your time. tune in next time. We'll look at chapter 8.